There is a room in every Japanese home governed by rules so strict, so absolute, and so completely different from anything in the West that breaking even one of them would mark you instantly as an outsider, and in some cases would genuinely disturb the people around you. That room is the bathroom, and here's what makes it fascinating. Almost every one of these rules would strike a Western person as strange, excessive, or unnecessary. Meanwhile, almost everything a Western person does in their own bathroom would strike a Japanese person as, frankly, unclean. Both cultures are trying to be hygienic. They have simply drawn the line between clean and unclean in completely different places, and the gap between them is far wider than you'd ever expect. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 strict Japanese bathroom rules that genuinely shock Westerners. Some of them will make you rethink something you've done your entire life and considered perfectly normal. And I promise you, by the end, you'll understand the single principle underneath all 6, the one that explains why Japan sees the Western bathroom the way it does. Let me say one thing, and then I won't bring it up again. I put the heart of everything on this channel into a small book, Wabi Sabi, Finding Peace in an Imperfect Life. It's linked below if it speaks to you. Now let's continue. Stay with me until Rule 4, because that's the one where foreigners make a specific mistake so common and so instantly recognizable that Japanese people can spot a visitor from across a room the moment it happens. But first, one piece of context, because without it, none of these rules will land properly. In most of the Western world, clean is a fairly simple practical idea. Something is clean if it doesn't have visible dirt on it and won't make you sick. That's roughly where the thinking stops. In Japan, cleanliness is more layered and, in a sense, more precise. Part of this traces back to Shinto, Japan's native religion, which has a concept of impurity, a kind of contamination that is more than merely physical and that is removed through acts of cleansing. This idea has shaped Japanese attitudes toward washing, bathing, and hygiene for well over 1,000 years, and it's still woven into everyday life today. What this produces, practically, is a far more detailed map of clean and unclean than most Westerners carry. Rather than one broad line between dirty and clean, Japan draws several careful distinctions. What comes from outside stays outside. What is being cleansed stays separate from what is already clean. And what enters a shared space is your responsibility to everyone sharing it. Hold that map in mind, because every rule that follows is an expression of it. The reason these Japanese rules feel excessive to Westerners, and the reason Western habits feel unclean to Japanese people, is that the two cultures are drawing those lines in genuinely different places. Let's start with the rule that flips the most fundamental thing about how Westerners bathe. This is the foundational rule, and it is absolute. In a Japanese home, the bathtub, the afuro, is not for washing. It is for soaking. Cleansing happens first, entirely separately at a shower or washing station beside the tub. You sit, you scrub your whole body, you rinse off every last trace of soap and dirt, and only then, once you are already completely clean, do you get into the bath. The bath's purpose is to warm you, relax you, and restore you, never to clean you. Now compare that to how most Westerners bathe. You fill the tub, maybe add some bubbles, and get in, dirty. You wash in the water, you soak in the water you just washed in, and when you climb out, you consider yourself clean. To a Japanese person, this is not clean. It is close to the opposite of clean. Think about it from their perspective. Honestly, you are sitting in a container of warm water that is gradually collecting the sweat, oil, and grime of your entire day off your own skin, and then continuing to sit in it, sometimes for half an hour, marinating. The thing many Westerners consider the height of a relaxing, hygienic evening looks, through the Japanese lens, like soaking in your own dirt. The framing shift is this. Japan separates two things that the West has merged into one activity. Cleansing removes what doesn't belong on you. Soaking restores what does. They happen in that order, never simultaneously. Once you see that distinction, you can't unsee it. And every other bathroom rule in Japan follows from it. The rule: you enter the bath already clean. The bath is for soaking, never for washing. And this principle doesn't stop at the front door. It governs public bathing too. The onsen, Japan's natural hot spring baths, which have operated on exactly this logic for centuries. Every onsen has a washing area with stools, taps, and showers, and you are expected to clean yourself completely, and rinse off every trace of soap before stepping into the shared water. Walking straight into the communal bath without washing first is one of the most serious breaches of etiquette there is, a genuine violation of a shared space and something that would draw real disapproval, which reveals something important. This isn't a household preference or a family habit. It's a deeply held cultural standard about what it means to enter water that others will share. And the reason it works, the reason thousands of strangers can use the same hot spring water and it stays clean, is that absolutely everyone follows it, without exception. The system only holds because the rule is genuinely strict. And here's the rule that follows directly from the first, and the one that genuinely shocks Westerners more than any other. In a Japanese household, the same bathwater is commonly used by multiple family members across an evening. One after another, each person enters the same tub of hot water and soaks in it. In many homes, the bath is even kept covered and heated between users, so the water stays warm for whoever's next. The typical Western reaction to this is immediate and visceral. That's disgusting. But notice why you had that reaction. It's because you're picturing it through the Western model, where people wash themselves in the tub. In that model, sharing bathwater would indeed be unpleasant, because the water would be full of the first person's dirt. But that's exactly the point of Rule 1. In a Japanese bath, nobody is washing in the water. Every single person entered it already completely clean, having scrubbed and rinsed thoroughly beforehand. So the water stays clean, because nothing dirty ever goes into it. It's warm, clear water that has held clean bodies, and nothing more. Once you understand that, the practice stops seeming unhygienic and starts seeming rather sensible. It saves an enormous amount of water and energy, heating one bath instead of 4 or 5, which matters in a country where such things have long been taken seriously. And it turns the evening bath into something shared and communal rather than purely private. So here's the uncomfortable question this rule raises, which is actually cleaner. Several clean people soaking in the same fresh water, or one dirty person soaking alone in water that is steadily filling with their own grime. Japan's answer to that is the whole reason the practice exists, the rule. The bathwater is shared because it never gets dirty in the first place. Rule 3. The toilet lives in its own separate room. Here's one that quietly reveals how differently the two cultures think about hygiene zones. In many Japanese homes, the toilet is not in the same room as the bath and sink. It has its own small separate room with its own door, entirely apart from the bathing area. The bath and washing area are one space, the toilet is another. To Westerners who are used to a single bathroom containing toilet, sink, and tub all together, this can seem like an odd use of space, especially in homes that are already small. But from the Japanese perspective, combining them is the strange choice. The reasoning goes back to that map of clean and unclean. The toilet is its own hygiene zone. It is where waste is dealt with, and everything associated with it is kept contained in that space. The bathing area, by contrast, is where you become clean, where cleansing and restoration happen. To a Japanese sensibility, putting the place where you get clean in the same room as the toilet is mixing two categories that should never touch. There's a practical dimension too. Separating them means one family member can use the toilet while another is bathing, which in a small home is genuinely useful. And it means the humid, steamy bathing area isn't shared with the toilet, which keeps both spaces more pleasant. So when a Japanese person looks at a typical Western bathroom, toilet, sink, and bathtub crammed into one room, with the towels hanging a few feet from the toilet, the reaction is a mild, quiet discomfort. Two things that ought to be separate have been merged, and everything in the room now belongs to both zones at once. The rule: the toilet is its own zone in its own room. It does not share space with where you get clean. Here it is, Rule 4, the one I promised. The rule where foreigners make a specific, instantly recognizable mistake. In many Japanese homes, and in traditional restaurants, ryokan inns, and plenty of other buildings, there is a dedicated pair of slippers that live inside the toilet room. You are already wearing indoor slippers around the house. But at the door of the toilet, you step out of your indoor slippers and into the toilet slippers. Use the toilet, and then step back out of them and into your indoor slippers on the way out. The logic is the strictest possible expression of the zone principle. Whatever touches the toilet floor stays with the toilet floor. It does not travel into the hallway. It does not walk into the kitchen. It certainly does not end up in the bedroom. The toilet slippers never leave that room. and nothing that has been on that floor is allowed to spread through the home. And now, the mistake. It happens constantly, and it is unmistakable. A foreign visitor uses the toilet, forgets entirely about the slippers, and walks out into the living room still wearing them. The toilet slippers, often a different color, sometimes clearly marked, go clopping across the house in full view of everyone. To Japanese eyes, this is a small horror. You have just walked the toilet floor through the entire home. It's the exact thing the system exists to prevent, performed as publicly as possible. Nobody will say anything, because that would be rude. But everyone notices instantly, and it marks you as a visitor more efficiently than anything you could say. Even if you never encounter toilet slippers yourself, the principle is worth stealing. The cloth that cleans your toilet should never touch anything else in your home. The mat in front of the toilet is not the mat you dry your feet on after a shower. Keep the zones separate, and you keep contamination contained instead of quietly distributing it around your house. The rule, what touches the toilet floor stays in the toilet room. Never, ever walk out in the toilet slippers. Let me give you a single comparison first, because it tells the whole story. In Japan, well over 80% of households have a bidet-function toilet, the kind that cleanses with water. Government survey figures have put the number above 80% for years, and it has continued climbing. In the United States, the proportion of toilets with a bidet function sits at somewhere around 2.5%. 80% versus 2.5%. That gap tells you almost everything about how differently these two cultures understand bathroom hygiene. Japan's modern bidet toilet, the washlet, arrived in 1980 and spread on the back of a piece of logic so simple it's hard to argue with. If your hands were dirty, you would wash them with water. You wouldn't wipe them with a dry napkin and call them clean. So why, the reasoning went, would the rest of the body be treated differently? A famous television advertisement in the early 1980s put this question to the country so plainly that it shifted national habits within a generation. That question has gone largely unasked in most Western bathrooms for over 40 years. And this is not a luxury item in Japan. Walk into a convenience store, a train station, an office building, a mid-range apartment, you'll find a washlet. It is the baseline expectation, not a splurge. Which means that when Japanese people learn that the overwhelming majority of Western bathrooms use dry paper alone, the reaction is genuine puzzlement and a quiet sense that something has been left unfinished. From that perspective, wiping with paper and considering the job done is comparable to washing dirt off your hands with a dry napkin. You did something. But to a culture built around cleansing with water, it feels incomplete in a way that's honestly a little unsettling. There's a practical dimension worth mentioning too. Dermatologists and health writers who have looked at this note that dry wiping, particularly vigorous dry wiping, can leave residue behind and cause irritation, whereas cleansing with water is both gentler and more thorough. It's one of those cases where the cultural preference and the practical reasoning happen to point in exactly the same direction. And it's worth noticing what the washlet actually represents. Japan didn't adopt it because of clever marketing or novelty. It spread because the underlying argument was simply difficult to refute once someone said it out loud. That's a recurring pattern in Japanese hygiene customs. They tend to survive because they hold up logically, not because they're traditional. The reason Westerners find this rule shocking isn't that it's strange. It's that it's obviously reasonable, and we've somehow never adopted it. The rule: water cleans. Paper mostly moves things around. Paper alone is not finished. The final rule is architectural, and it changes what a bathroom fundamentally is. A Japanese bathing room is designed on the assumption that the entire room will get wet. There's a drain in the floor. The surfaces are made for water. You sit on a small stool at a washing station, and you scrub and rinse right there in the open room, water going everywhere by design, before getting into the tub. When you're done, the whole room can simply be rinsed down. Compare this to the Western bathroom, where water is meant to be contained. It belongs inside the shower cubicle or the tub, behind a curtain or a glass door, and water escaping onto the floor is treated as a problem. A spill, a leak, something to mop up. The Western bathroom fights water. The Japanese bathroom welcomes it. This design difference makes a genuinely thorough wash possible in a way a cramped Western shower cubicle doesn't. You have space to sit, scrub properly, and rinse completely without worrying about splashing. There's one more small habit attached to this room that surprises people. When the bath is finished, Japanese families often cover the tub with a lid. This keeps the water warm for the next person, reduces the humidity flooding the room, and stops dust falling in. 3 benefits from an action that takes about 3 seconds, and almost nobody outside Japan does it. The rule: the bathing room is built to get soaked, and the bath is covered when you're done. So let's gather all 6. You wash before the bath, never in it. The family shares the same water because it never gets dirty. The toilet lives in its own separate room. Toilet slippers never leave the toilet. Paper alone isn't considered clean, and the bathing room is built to get completely wet. Notice the single thread running through everyone. Not one of these rules is arbitrary strictness or superstition. Every single one is an expression of the same underlying idea: keeping the clean and the unclean strictly, carefully separate. Wash before the bath, so cleansing never contaminates soaking. Toilet in its own room, so waste never shares space with getting clean. Slippers that never leave, so the toilet floor never travels. Water rather than paper, so cleansing is actually complete. Where Western culture draws one broad line between dirty and clean, Japan draws a whole map and follows it with a consistency that looks, from the outside, like extreme fussiness. But it isn't fussiness, it's precision. It's a culture that has thought carefully about where contamination actually spreads, and built its habits and even its architecture around containing it. And here's the genuinely useful part for you, because you're not about to remodel your bathroom. Steal the principle rather than the practice. Keep your zones separate. The toilet cloth never touches anything else. Rinse yourself properly before a long soak. And notice how different the bath feels when you're already clean going in. Cover the tub. Ventilate after showering. Small things, all of them, and every one is the same idea. Contain what should be contained, and separate what should be separate. That's the whole Japanese bathroom philosophy in a sentence. And it's available to anyone, in any bathroom, starting tonight. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 6 shocked you the most? And be honest, which one are you now slightly reconsidering about your own bathroom? Tell me the number, 1 through 6, down in the comments. And if this genuinely changed how you see something you've done your whole life, share it with one person who is definitely, right now, washing themselves in the bathtub. I'll see you in the next one.